Church in 30 Minutes or Less. I will be back in just a couple minutes. I will see you back here in just a moment. We will be live right at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. See you soon.
Sometimes you wonder if this fight is worthwhile. The precious moments are all lost in the tide. Yeah, it's swept away. Nothing is what it seems. The feel of belonging to your dreams, to your heart. When he's calling for you, listen to your heart. There's nothing else you can do. I don't know where you're going, and I don't know why. Listen to your heart before you tell him goodbye.
We are about 30 seconds away. Welcome everyone to Church in 30 Minutes or Less. Let me get all my things organized here. It is so great to be with all of you. My name is Stu Perry, and I am the Chief Evangelist here at the Lost and Found Evangelistic Association. If this is your first time with us, we are so excited to have you. And if you've been with us for every single week, it's great to see you too. If you've been with us a few times along the way, maybe this is second time, third time, fourth time, whatever time it is, we are so excited to have you with us as well. If you don't know anything about us, we would love if you check out our website. That website is lostandfoundea.org. It's Lost and Found, the letter E, the letter A.org. That's Evangelistic Association. That's what the E and the A stand for. And if at any time you have any ideas for me, if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you think we should cover here at Church in 30 Minutes or Less, feel free to send me an email. My email address is Stu, that's S-T-U, at lostandfoundea.org. That's Stu at lostandfound, the letter E, the letter A.org. If you check out our website, you'll also be able to find all sorts of cool things that we are working on. You'll be able to see our vision and our mission for this ministry and why it is that we exist. Basically, we are just a group of people who believe that no matter where you've come from or where you're headed, you should have the opportunity to meet and fall in love with Jesus Christ. And we believe that whatever it takes to make that happen, that it's worth it. And so we are willing to do whatever it takes by any means necessary to reach the world for Jesus Christ. So I hope that you are excited with me, along with our mission and our vision. At our website, there is a way for you to be able to donate, because we are attempting this summer to do some really cool events. We are wanting to take over a bar in Louisville, Kentucky, to have church once a month this summer. So that would be June, July, and August. We want to take over a bar to have church. And so we want to be able to reach those people who might never set foot inside of a classical church. We want to be able to be a resource for them to be able to meet and fall in love with Jesus Christ. If you decide to donate with us at any level, whether that be $1, $10, $25, $100, whatever it is that you would like to do, you will receive one of our cool Lost and Found Evangelistic Association bracelets. I've got the purple one on this week. You can see it says by any means necessary. It's got our cool little logo right here, and then it's also got our website. It's lostandfoundea.org. So I hope that you'll check that out. There are also other rewards for different giving levels. There's autographs, there's a meet and greet, there's all sorts of different things. So please check that out. Lost and Found, the letter E, the letter A.org. Well, if you've been with us, we've been in our series, Dumb Things Christians Say. And this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I think that as Christians, we say all kinds of dumb things. If you were with us in our first week, we talked about that Christians all the time say, I'll pray for you. And as a matter of fact, I got a message today, a text message from my friend Jared. He might be watching right now, but Jared sent me a message and he said, I am praying for you. And I just thought that that was a cool and a different way to send me that message. It wasn't saying I will. It said, I am praying for you right now. And so maybe that's a different way that we can take it as Christians. Last week we talked about at least I'm not. So at least I'm not that kind of a sinner. At least I'm not that kind of a person. At least I'm not ... And you can fill in the blank with whatever it is that a Christian might say. Well, I deal with certain things, but at least I don't deal with this thing. And then today we are going to talk about how when Christians say follow your heart, it is one of the dumbest things that anybody could ever tell you. And the reason it's so dumb is because if you are going to someone for advice and you are asking them, hey, what should I do in this, then that means you don't know the right path to take. You don't know what it is that you should do. So if somebody says, oh, just follow your heart, well, then you kind of go in a circle and you come back to right where you were, and that's lost. You come back to, okay, well, if I'm following my heart and I came to you because I don't know what to do, then I still don't know what it is I'm supposed to do. But what we do know is that as people, we're gonna do what we want to do. It comes down to, where is your heart leading? And is your heart worth following? And as I was thinking about this message, I was thinking about all the different things that my heart has led me to do. The first thing that I can remember wanting to be when I was younger is I wanted, more than anything in the world, I wanted to be an astronaut. And I thought it would be so cool to be in a spaceship and be launched up into space and just be able to go to the moon and go to Mars. I thought we would have already been to Mars by now. And I just thought that I was going to go and I was going to float around space, and I was going to be one of the only people in the history of the world that ever got to go into space. And I was going to wear a diaper because that's what astronauts wear. And I was going to drink Tang, and I was going to have food floating all around. I was thinking donuts, like donuts could be flying around. I could just pick my donuts. It would be like a floating bakery up in space. And I thought that that would just be so cool. And I wanted to be an astronaut. And when I was a little kid, my parents would always say, well, you could be whatever you want to be. And I realized early on I was not going to be an athlete. So I was like, well, if I'm not going to be an athlete, maybe I can be an astronaut. And so I studied about astronauts. I read books about astronauts. I wrote papers about, well, like a second grade paper about astronauts. I drew pictures of astronauts and planets, and I went to yard sales, and I would find stuff where I could dress up like an astronaut. And I just wanted to be an astronaut so bad until like the next year. And the next year, oh man, the next year, let me tell you, the next year was even better, because the next year I wanted to be a professional wrestler. And you know, I am a professional wrestler now, but back then I wanted to be a professional wrestler. I wanted to wrestle with The Rock and with Stone Cold, and I wanted to go to every single wrestling event. I still have them. They're up in my bedroom. I have hundreds of wrestling action figures, and I just thought professional wrestling was the coolest. I had these notebooks where I would write down fake matches that I had between my action figures and what had happened. And me and my friend, I remember my friends Josh and Corwin, we had notebooks and we would write matches as if our classmates were in the matches with us, and we were just fighting against each other, and we were in tag teams. And I could remember fighting on trampolines and just pretending to be a professional wrestler, and I wanted to be a professional wrestler so bad until the next year. And the next year, my heart wanted to be a police officer so bad. And I was like, oh, I'm going to take out the bad guys, and I don't care what bad guy comes up against me. I'm going to shoot them right in the face. I'm going to take them to the ground. I'm going to handcuff them behind their back. I'm going to tase them. I'm going to mace them. I'm going to do all that. I'm going to be the best police officer ever. I'm going to help the people who nobody else can help. I'm going to fight all the crimes. I'm going to catch all the bad guys. I'm going to be a police officer. And I was all about being a police officer until the next year. And the next year, I wanted to be a magician. And so I went out and I bought tons of magic tricks. And I've still got tons of magic tricks, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of magic tricks. I've got tricks that I can do on stages, and tricks that I can do at parties, and tricks I can do in front of one person or 1,000 people. I've got tons of magic tricks just everywhere. And I just was so in love with being a magician. I was following my heart. I could be anything that I wanted to be until like the next year. And then the next year I wanted to be a juggler. And so now I juggle fire. And then a few years after that, I wanted to be a singer. And so I play the guitar, I play the piano, and I sing. I was in choir. And then there were a few years after that where I wanted to be a minister. And then I wanted to be a therapist. And I wanted to follow my heart. And then my heart just kept leading me all sorts of different places. And I got real confused. Have you ever felt that way? If it's all about following your heart, then that's a very crazy path to take, because your heart doesn't go in one direction for too long, and your heart chases after different things all the time. And I can remember times in my life where I chased after drugs, and I chased after myself, and I chased after all these other things. And my heart led me this direction, and that direction, and that direction, and that direction, and that direction. And if I'm supposed to follow my heart, then I don't know where I'm headed, because my heart is crazy. But the one thing that we know is that as people, we're going to do what we want to do. So, what do we do in those times where we're not so sure what it is we should do? Should we follow our heart? I don't think that's the answer. And I don't think that's the answer for several reasons, but the first reason that I want to look at is it comes from the book of Jeremiah, chapter 17. And in Jeremiah chapter 17, Jeremiah writes this. He says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it?" Isn't that the perfect definition of our heart? He says the heart is deceitful. That means it tricks you. Hasn't your heart done that before? Hasn't your heart said like, "Oh, this will be so great," and then you chase after that thing and it's just not as great as you thought it was going to be? The heart will trick you. Or maybe the heart will tell you to chase after that person, and you get down the road of that person and it tricked you. The heart is deceitful. It's a trickster above all things and beyond cure. That's the second thing it is. So it's a trickster, and not only is it a trickster, but it's a trickster with no cure. You cannot fix it. And so if I'm supposed to follow my heart can play tricks on me, and there's nothing I can do to stop it from playing tricks on me. So if I'm supposed to follow my heart, what in the world do? I just follow a liar? I follow a liar who's never going to stop lying? No. And then he says this, who can understand it? And that is the best thing that I can think of my heart. There's so many times where people have told me, "Oh, follow your heart." And I don't even know what my heart's saying. Who can understand it? My heart is a trickster without any cure. And as a matter of fact, even if I was going to follow my heart, I have no idea what my heart is telling me to do. Who can understand it? There's a story in the Bible, and it's actually, I'm going to go through several stories, but it's the story of one man. And this man's name was Simon. Jesus changed it to Peter, and he's one of the 12 disciples. And we'll actually see where Jesus changes his name from Simon to Peter and why he did that. And I think that Simon Peter is a perfect example of what we're trying to talk about, because there were so many times where he just wanted to follow his heart and Jesus gave him totally different instructions. And so what I want to do is kind of follow through and start with where we meet Simon Peter, and then go all the way through and even talk about how Simon Peter died. But along the way, we'll stop and we'll kind of think about, where was Simon Peter's heart leading him? And what did Jesus tell him to do? So let's go on this journey together. We'll start in Luke chapter 5, and here's what it says. One day, as Jesus was preaching on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, great crowds pressed in on him to listen to the word of God. So Jesus is standing on a beach, basically, and there's all these people that are coming towards him, to where he's backing up farther and farther and farther, and they keep coming closer and closer. So he realizes he's got to do something else. He noticed two empty boats at the water's edge, for the fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. Stepping into one of the boats, Jesus asked Simon, its owner, to push it out into the water. Now, this to me is a little backwards, because Jesus, doesn't that seem backwards to you? If it was me, now Simon Peter is a fisherman, and so this is where he made his livelihood, from this boat. So if someone is stepping into the thing that is my livelihood, I'm going to be a little upset with that. That would be like if somebody walked up to me and like took my wrestling gear bag, and it was just like, they grabbed it and they start walking. They're like, "Hey, can I use this?" I'm like, "No, you can't. I don't know who you are. What do you mean, can you use that?" And Simon Peter, I bet his heart was telling him, "I don't know that you want this guy just stepping into your boat." But Simon Peter goes along with it. It says this: "So he sat in the boat and taught the crowds from there. When he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, 'Now go out where it is deeper and let down your nets to catch some fish.' 'Master,' Simon replied, 'we worked hard all last night and didn't catch a thing. But if you say so, I'll let the nets down again.'" So we see this dichotomy here, where Jesus is telling Simon to do one thing, and Simon's heart is telling him another. Jesus says, "Well, you let me into your boat. That's great. Thank you so much. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to go out farther into the sea, and I want you to throw your nets over." And Simon's listening to his heart, and he says, "Master, I mean, that sounds kind of crazy. We've fished for a long time now, and we didn't catch anything." And then he says this: "But if you say so, I'll let the nets down again." The story goes on. It says, "And this time their nets were so full of fish, the other boat, and soon both boats were filled with fish and on the verge of sinking. When Simon Peter realized what had happened, he fell to his knees before Jesus and said," now before we get to what Simon Peter said, let's think about this. What if Simon Peter had followed his heart? His heart was saying, I don't know if you want to let this guy in the boat. I don't know if you want to throw those nets over. And had Simon Peter listened to his heart, he never would have been a part of this. But because he listened to Jesus, he threw the nets over, pulled them back up, and two boats were filled with so many fish that they started to sink. And there's a key word in here in what Simon Peter says. He calls Jesus Master. And that's important. What that means is, I'm going to follow you. My heart is not my master. You are my master. And so if you tell me to do this, then no matter what my heart says, I'm going to do what you tell me to do. So because he followed Jesus, his master, and not his heart, the thing that's deceitful, the thing with no cure, and the thing that nobody can understand, because he followed Jesus, he was able to be a part of this incredible miracle. But then Simon listens to his heart again. Right after that, and he says, "Oh Lord, please leave me. I'm such a sinful man." Now, can you imagine? You are in your boat as it is sinking from all the fish that Jesus has just told you to go catch, told you how to catch. And Simon's heart starts to panic, and he says, "Oh Lord, please leave me." Now, can you imagine what would have happened if Simon Peter had followed his heart in that moment and he had just left Jesus? He never would have turned into Peter, and maybe he would have felt okay about himself, but he never would have accomplished what it was Jesus wanted him to accomplish. And Jesus replied to Simon, "Don't be afraid. Don't listen to your heart. From now on, you'll be fishing for people." And as soon as they landed, they left everything and here's the important part, followed Jesus. So Jesus steps into Simon Peter's boat, and I'm sure Simon's heart is like, "I don't know if you want this guy taking your boat, but all right." And Simon was like, "You know what? Jesus is master, not my heart. I'm going to follow him." And then he gets out there, and Jesus is like, "Oh, that was so great. Thank you for letting me use your boat. Throw your nets over to the side." And Simon listens to his heart, and he says, "I don't know. Like, we haven't caught anything." But then he's like, "But you know what? You are master." And so he disregards his heart. He follows Jesus. He throws the nets over, pulls the nets back in. There's so many fish that the boat starts to sink, and he's following Jesus right now. But then he listens to his heart again, and he's like, "Please get away from me." And then Jesus says, "Don't be afraid," which is basically saying, don't listen to your heart. And then they get back on the shore, and he followed Jesus, not his heart. He followed Jesus. Do you see how it bounces back and forth in the story? Anytime Simon followed his heart, he was moving the wrong direction. Anytime Simon Peter followed Jesus, he was moving toward a direction beyond anything that he could imagine. Simon Peter's story goes on, and it gets better and better. There's a time where Jesus is talking to his disciples, and he says, like, "Who do people say that I am?" And they answer, and they say, "Some say you're John the Baptist, others say Elijah." And then Jesus says this. Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" And Simon Peter answered. And Simon Peter, he was kind of the one that answered first all the time. You know, that person that like was in class and would shoot their hand up like before the teacher even finished their question. I bet Simon Peter was like that. "But who do you say I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And so at this time, Simon Peter is not listening to his heart. He's listening to Jesus because he has now followed Jesus. He wasn't following his heart. He's following Jesus. And because he was able to follow Jesus, he was able to see who Jesus actually was. And Jesus says this, "Now I say to you that you are Peter." So this is where he changes his name. Peter means rock. "And upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it." And so what Jesus is saying is, Peter, you're not going to keep being this guy who keeps going back and forth and heart and Jesus and heart and Jesus and heart and Jesus. No, you're not going to be that guy anymore. I am going to build my church on you. You are going to be stable. You are going to be a rock for me. That now here's the funny thing. So that's verse 18, Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, and then we skip down to Matthew chapter 16, verse 21. So just 3 verses later, this is what happens. Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and that he would suffer many terrible things. So Jesus is telling them, hey, we're going to go and people are going to arrest me. They're going to take me. They're going to kill me. He would be killed, but on the 3rd day, he would be raised from the dead. But Peter took him aside, and here's the funny thing, and began to reprimand him. So Peter pulls Jesus aside and starts to yell at him. He says, "Heaven forbid, Lord, this will never happen to you." This is just 3 verses. 3 verses after Jesus says, you're going to be the rock, you're going to be the stability, you're not going to be Jesus' heart, Jesus' heart, Jesus' heart. You're going to be sturdy like a rock. And Peter pulls Jesus aside and says, "You're not going to die. You're not going to die. Heaven forbid. This will never happen to you." 3 verses after Jesus calls Simon Peter the rock, here's what he says. Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get away from me, Satan." What? Are you kidding me? So Peter is following Jesus, and he says, "You are the Messiah, you are the Lord." And then Jesus is like, "Oh, well, if I'm the Messiah, if I'm the Lord, if I'm the Savior, then I've got to die." And then Simon Peter follows his heart, and he says, "You will never, ever die. We will never let that happen to you." And when Peter starts to follow his heart, Jesus says, "You are Satan. Are you kidding me?" He says, "You are a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view." Jesus is saying here, you are following your heart. Peter, you can't do that. You have to choose me or your heart. Not me, then your heart, then me, then your heart, then me, then your heart. Follow me. And he says this, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. Not your heart, follow me. The story goes on, and Jesus gets arrested. And Jesus is in this garden, and he starts to say, "Tonight, all of you," he's talking to his disciples, "tonight, all of you will desert me." And Peter again just shouts out real fast, and he says, "Even if everyone else deserts you, I will never desert you. I will follow you, not my heart. So I might want to desert you, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to desert you. I'm going to follow you." And Jesus replies, and he says this, "I tell you the truth, Peter, this very night before the rooster crows, you will deny 3 times that you even know me." "No," Peter insisted. "Even if I have to die with you, I will never deny you." What he's saying is, no, I will not follow my heart. I will follow you. Just a couple verses later. Meanwhile, Jesus got taken away. He got arrested. Peter was sitting outside in the courtyard. A servant girl came over and said to him, "You were one of those with Jesus." But Peter denied it in front of everyone. "I don't know what you are talking about." Later, out by the gate, another servant girl noticed him and said to those standing around, "This man was with Jesus." Again, Peter denied it, this time with an oath. "I don't even know the man," he said. A little later, some of the other bystanders came over to Peter and said, "You must be one of them. We can tell by your Galilean accent." Peter swore, so he starts to cuss, and he says, "Bleep no! Bleep no! A curse on me if I'm lying. I don't know the man." And immediately the rooster crowed. Suddenly, Jesus' words flashed through Peter's mind, and he went away weeping bitterly. Peter said, "I'm not going to follow my heart. I'm going to follow you." And then he starts to follow his heart. He goes the wrong way. He denies that he even knows Jesus. But if you know the story, Jesus dies and then he comes back to life. And he's sitting around with the disciples and he eats breakfast with them. And it says this, after breakfast, Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," Peter replied. "You know I love you." Jesus is saying, are you going to follow what your heart says? Because your heart denied me 3 times. Or are you going to make the choice to love me? "Yes, Lord," Peter replied. "You know I love you." Jesus repeated the question, "Simon, do you love me?" "Yes, Lord," Peter said. "You know I love you." The third time he asked him, "Simon, do you love me?" And it says this, Peter was hurt that Jesus asked the question a third time. He said, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Then Jesus told him, "Follow me." Here's the thing. If you follow your heart, it is deceitful, it is a liar with no cure, and it is impossible to understand. When you follow your feelings, you'll go back and forth, and I believe in Jesus today and I don't today, and I believe in him today and I don't today, and I believe in him today and I don't today. I'll follow him today and I won't today. And when your feelings are controlling you, when your heart is controlling you, you will not have a path to take. What Jesus is telling us through the story of Peter is this: people are going to do what they want to do. Will you want to choose to follow Jesus? Let me say that again. People will do whatever they want to do, but will you want to choose to follow what Jesus wants you to do? Not based on a feeling, but because you know that he knows what's best. We saw every time Simon Peter followed Jesus, he was a part of something incredible. And every time he followed his heart, he got thrown off course. Are you going to be the same way? If you are a Christian, are you choosing to follow Jesus, or are you basing it on how you feel that day? And if you are not a Christian, are you feeling completely overwhelmed because you have no idea which way you're supposed to head? Jesus lays it out pretty clearly in the Bible. Love him, love people, everything else will work itself out. And if you'll choose that every single day, then there's no way you can go wrong. If you've never made the decision to accept Jesus, I want to offer that to you right now. It's very, very simple. All you need to do to follow him is repeat this simple prayer. Dear God, I'm a sinner in need of a Savior. I believe you sent your Son to die for me. I believe he rose again, and I will do my best to choose to live for him all the days of my life. If you just prayed that prayer, I would love to hear from you. Please check in with me at Stu, S-T-U, at lostandfoundea.org. You can shoot me an email. Check out our website, lostandfound, the letter E, the letter A.org. Let me pray for you, and I will see you again back next week for Church in 30 Minutes or Less. Dear God, thank you so much for everyone who tuned in. Please help them not to be people who just follow their feelings and follow their hearts, but who choose every day to follow you. God, I just pray that they are able to see that you know the path way better than we do. And I pray that they will choose you every single moment of every single day. It's in your son's name we pray. And everybody said amen. I will see you back again next week, next Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Church in 30 Minutes or Less.